Welcome to Real Rockford Files, for tales of the paranormal, supernatural, and the flat-out unbelievable. Today I'll be sharing ghost stories and hauntings. Let's get into it. Story 1. This incident happened to me in the winter of 2010. I was staying in Poon. Our house was near military college grounds. It was a beautiful location with lots of greenery around. The family of our landlord stayed on the ground floor, and the first floor was rented out to me. I'd been staying with them for 4 years, so it was almost part of the family. I had just married and was settling in with my wife. I worked a night shift from 5:30 p.m. to 2:30 a.m., but because of my landlords, was not worried about my wife. I had not encountered anything for 4 years, so this incident shook me. Every day my cab would drop me at the road and leave. I had to walk around 500 meters to my house. It used to be 4 a.m. by the time I reached home. I used to see an old man walking his dog sometimes. I chatted with him occasionally and found that his name was Horinda Diva, changed, and he was a retired military officer living at the other side of the camp. One day, my cab dropped me. It was very cold that day, and I was hurrying home. I saw Mr. Diva coming from the opposite side. I greeted him as usual and walked ahead to my house. I was about to open the door with my latchkey and saw the light to the living room. I opened the door and saw my wife standing at the window, utterly terrified and soaked in sweat. She ran to me and started crying. I somehow consoled her, and after some time she started narrating what happened. She told me that she used to feel lonely sometimes at night and would come to the living room to watch TV and stand at our window which faced the road. She told me she saw a man walking his dog daily, but never saw where he came from, and he would take a turn at the roundabout, and then just before the temple on the other side of the road, he would vanish. She ignored this earlier, thinking it was a trick of the light, but today she saw me talking to a person, and when I moved to our house, that man stopped and kept on staring at my back. Then, as if sensing someone observing him, he suddenly looked at my wife and vanished on the spot. At the same time I opened the door. I was scared as hell after realizing who I was talking to. My wife was down with fever the next day. I too stayed at home for a couple of days. I tried to find out about Mr. Diva, but found that the houses on the other side of the camp were empty. No one knew any person by that name. After that, I would request our driver to wait until I reached our house and then leave. But fortunately, I did not meet Mr. Diva after that day. My wife and I did have quite a few paranormal incidents after that while we stayed there. I'll tell someone about them eventually. Story 2. This happened about 5 years ago at St. Paul's Church in my hometown of Skelmersdale. Recently single, I moved back to Skem as we call it. I was bored and needed something new to do, so I went out and bought a brand new Kona Do mountain bike. Bike rides became a daily thing, and I would ride for miles, either alone or with friends. One day I was going past St. Paul's Church, where my granddad is buried. If I was ever going on a bike ride, I would always pass there and go in to see him. He died when I was just 1 year old, so I never remember him. But I think maybe he met me and held me at some point in his life. I would occasionally just visit, say hello, show my face, and let him see how I've aged. Anyway, the last time I visited before this day, I remember his headstone was in a bad condition, and I could barely find it because I couldn't read his name. Also, I would always forget where in the graveyard his resting place was, and I would always be searching for at least 10 minutes until I found it. Sometimes I wouldn't even find it, which was weird and frustrating for me. This one day I was riding past the church. I stopped by the gate to go in and thought to myself, it's been at least 2 or 3 years since I've been here. I thought about the state of the headstone last time and told myself, I'll never find him. So with that in thought, I decided to not look. It came back when I had more time and wasn't all sweaty from riding all day. As I was about to set off, I went to roll my bike and jump on, like I usually do, and exactly at that moment, 2 weird things happened. My back wheel seized up and skidded across the pavement for about a foot, and my hand wasn't on the brake at all. I was pushing off to leave, so my hand being on the brake doesn't fit in, nor was my heel stuck in a gap in the pavement. I also received a huge ping of tinnitus in my ears to the point where I kind of wobbled a bit. I sometimes get tinnitus, I'll admit, but never had it like that before. I really believe it was my granddad stopping me from leaving, and the tinnitus, for me, tells me he was present. Thanks for reading. Story 3. This incident happened last year on the 20th of December. I was returning from work and was already late. The path to my home from the workplace is somewhat remote. Not much public transports go to that part of our area. As I grew up here, that's why I'm habituated to living here. I was never scared to commute to and fro from my workplace to my home at any time of day or even at night. I somehow managed to take an auto rickshaw that agreed to drop me at a place that was a bit far away from my home. It was no issue for me to walk up that much distance alone. But here comes the thing that everything just got so weird. As soon as I got off the auto rickshaw, I swear I felt like somebody else too got off along with me. Since my only aim was to get home in no time, I didn't think of the matter that much. Now comes the weird part. The auto rickshaw driver looked at me and then turned and looked behind at the back seat. He again looked at me and looked back. He did this 2 more times. I was quite amused at his behavior. I couldn't stop myself from asking him about his peculiar action, and the reason he told me was pretty strange and confusing. He said that when I took the auto, he clearly saw a girl, about the same height as me, getting in the auto, and yes, she sat beside me. But now there's no one, and he clearly doesn't remember the girl getting off anywhere until we reached here. So where the heck did she go? I laughed a bit and brushed off the whole conversation and started to walk towards my home. I don't know how else to put this, but to be very honest, there was something in the surrounding that day, or night, that sent chills straight down my spine. I was damn sure that I wasn't alone. I wasn't walking alone. While covering the whole distance from the stoppage to my home, I constantly had this feeling of someone being with me. Once I got inside my home, don't know why, I turned back to have a look at something or someone. But again, I had a feeling, this time different though. I had the feeling of getting looked at by someone. I don't know who, but by whoever was standing there, outside my house, on the other side of the road. Thank you for reading this, guys, and I hope that you'll pardon me for my poor English. Thank you once again. Story 4. It was a fairly cold early December morning. I woke up dragging myself from bed, not wanting to go to work, but having to go anyway. Sometimes you don't feel like doing it, but have to do it. Since my last encounter, it has become a little ritual for my mother to apply holy ash on my forehead every day before going to work. Sometimes she forces me to take a lemon with me so as to ward off any evil spirits. She could be pretty superstitious sometimes. I had a lemon in my bag with me this day and did not have the faintest idea that I was about to encounter another similar incident, but this time on a different route. I have a feeling that it happens when you least expect it to. I travel alone to work now as my colleague had quit his job and joined another company elsewhere. As I took a left turn, passing through a village, I saw a figure walking ahead of me in the middle of the road, as if he appeared out of nowhere. He was an adult male in his shorts. He held his left hand up at waist level. Maybe he was mentally challenged. But as I got closer to him, I felt something odd. I saw from behind that his legs were all dirty and covered with white cement or mud. I threw my bike's focus light so that he could sense the light and make way for me, but he didn't move an inch left or right. So I overtook him from the left and went ahead, but I had this urge to look in my mirror. There was no one behind. He was nowhere to be seen. I stopped my bike and looked behind to make sure, but the figure wasn't there. Just 50 meters ahead of me, there were three guys waiting for a vehicle to pick them up for work. They didn't have the slightest idea what I'd just seen. Nevertheless, I got on with my journey. Story 5. Back in the early 1990s, angels were all the rage. You couldn't go into a store without finding a stand on the counter with guardian angel pins. Everyone wore them on their jackets. In fact, I still have one attached to an old sweater. At the time, there were many books out about angels, and some of these books contained stories of people who had experiences with them. I was given a book about how to contact an angel. In hindsight, this was not a good idea. One uncontacted was most likely not an angel. However, this seemed like a neat thing to do at the time. I was in my early 20s and just happened to be home alone, not sure where my boyfriend or roommates were, but this seemed like a good time to try this. I don't recall 100% what the instructions were, but I remember there was some type of incantation you had to recite. I had a notebook in my lap and a pen ready. Based on the instructions in the book, I started the incantation and waited. Nothing. Suddenly, thoughts started coming into my head, and I started writing them down. Now, I don't know for sure if this is my mind making this stuff up, but the sentences were rhyming. I asked the angel its name and was given a response. Moments later, the energy in the room shifted. I started to feel overwhelmed, like something very large was in the room with me. At the time, I had an oak dresser, and the wood started making popping sounds. I started to see gold glittering as if someone was dropping glitter from the ceiling. Instead of feeling some sense of peace, I was terrified. I begged whatever it was to go away because it was scaring me. I had the master bedroom at the time and entered the bathroom right off of it. I stood in front of the sink with my eyes closed and continued to beg for whatever was there to go. Without warning, I felt something cold touch the center of my back, right between the shoulder blades. Then it was gone. The room returned to normal, and I didn't see or hear anything out of the ordinary. I took a big breath of relief. My back still felt cold, so I lifted my shirt up and was horrified to see a large purple oval in the center of my back. It didn't hurt. It just looked like a giant purple bruise. Needless to say, I was feeling quite unsettled for some time to come. I never tried to summon an angel, or anything for that matter, again, and eventually got rid of the book. So what was really there? Was it an angel, ghost, demon? I will never know for sure. Later on in the day, I told my boyfriend at the time what happened. I mentioned the mark on my back. When I went to show him, of course it was gone. Story 6. This is one of my own personal stories. In my life, I've had many encounters with the paranormal, ghosts, etc. So to avoid going on too long, I'm going to stick to a period where I believe my sightings were all connected. It was the summer of 2008 or 2009. My family and I were always comfortable telling each other if we saw something odd or scary, so when it really ramped up, we couldn't stop talking about it. It was a hot summer and our electricity was off due to non-payment, so we always had plenty of candles at night for light. And one night, one of my many brothers and myself decided to play with a Ouija board with the rest of the family watching. And being smartasses, we asked if there were any spirits among us. Ready to laugh when the thing moved to the number 8. Me and my brother checked with each other, the typical, I'm not moving it, are you? No. You? No. So stupidly, I asked, how many are demons? And I shit you not, it moved to the number 6. 6 demons. We were done. We ended the session, but it didn't matter. Things were about to happen anyways. I can't remember what order each event happened, so the chronology might be wrong. One night, after using the board, I was standing in my living room, talking to my mother and one of her friends, when suddenly, right in front of both of them, I'm yanked hard by my hair straight down to the floor. Hard. I laid there for a good 10 seconds, blinking, trying to comprehend what just happened to me. Safe to say, everyone in the house is freaked out by now, me not being the only one having experiences. Different family members would tell me they see me walking back and forth in front of the house while I'm upstairs in my room. Nightmares, sleep paralysis, sleepwalking. This last part scared me more than most things in my entire life. I was home alone. Our electric was back on. I was walking out of my bedroom door to go downstairs to get a drink. I took one step on the stairs and thought I heard a footstep behind me. I paused. Nothing. Took another step, and in the next second I clearly heard the extra footsteps turn into running right at me. I turned wide-eyed, then I heard scraping on the walls, like nails ripping down. The chunks of paint from the walls flew off and hit me in the face. I stumbled down the stairs, half running, half shaking, and stood outside until everyone else was home. When they got home, I was pacing back and forth like the other me. To this day, not much has scared me like that did. That's all for now. Hope you enjoyed.